Hi guys, finally getting around to making this video on shading and mapping and lighting. I may break this up into a few separate ones depending how long it takes me to do some things. Okay, so we're looking at room 3 here, as was designed by a student a number of years ago. So I'm not going to mess with any of the objects that are in here. I'm going to make new ones. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to just insert a sphere. Now, one thing I've noticed about Maya when I'm recording is that it's running faster than it was earlier. It tends to be a little bit behind. Now, as you know, every object that we create from scratch is made in what's called Lambert 1, which is our basic shader. We never color Lambert 1 and we never assign a map or an image to Lambert 1, because everything that is Lambert 1, which will be everything, will automatically change over to it. So we would by default always apply a shader when we come around to do it. So you'll be doing all of these from scratch. So if I go over to the rendering shelf, I'll see that this one here is Blinn. This one here is Lambert. We've got Fung and we've got Fungy. Now, I've put a description up on Moodle of what all of these colors are about, so you'll be able to look at those. But just to give you some kind of an idea, let me just see here. We'll run this through. There we go. We'll bring this one over. Okay, so we'll leave anisotropic for the moment. Blinn, the most computationally expensive of the three materials. You can set attributes of Blinn materials to control the effect of shininess. So very shiny objects are built in Blinn. Now, I have to warn you guys about this. If you don't want to spend the rest of your life rendering your scene, I would steer clear of it, okay? Because the more shiny something is, the more light tracing becomes difficult, because it's bouncing light all over the place. So I'd steer clear, right? So we have Lambert, which is the most basic one, and it's good for matte things. You see there's this matte paint, unpolished surfaces, chalk, stuff like that. So for a lot of things that will actually be okay, that will be fine. We have Fong, which is for glassy or glossy surfaces. There's also another couple as well I can show you too. And then we had Fong E, which is a slightly scaled back version of that, which isn't as reflective. So it renders a little bit easier. For what we're doing, I would suggest that we stick with either Lambert or Fong. Fong isn't too bad. It can take up a bit of memory, but it actually does look quite nice. But I would steer clear of Blinn, and as it happens, anisotropic. Now, there's another one that I want to show you as well, because it actually it controls transparency a lot better. Okay, it's called AI Standard Surface, but I'm just going to start with this one at the moment, right? So at the moment I have this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a surface to it. So let's do let me see here, Fong. So straight away you can see that the color has changed a little bit, and to indicate that there's a shader gone onto it, and we can click on the color over here and set that to being a color. Okay, so I've set it for kind of yellow. Now, at the moment, it's just in our scene and it just looks like a yellow ball. So, as we know, to look at these things in interactive view, we go on up to Arnold and we click on Arnold Render View. That's opened up off screen. And then we either click on that red play button or we go Render Run IPR. Now, when that happens, depending on the complexity of your scene, everything's going to freeze. I can't do pretty much at the moment. Okay, now it's still rendering, so we kind of have to wait for it to get there. Now, nothing much is actually going to happen with this scene because there are no lights in the scene at the moment. What we're looking at is the build view, so there are no lights as far as I know. I've deleted all of them, so I'm going to wait till it's saying that it's finished rendering. Now, even though there's no image there to show, it's still rendering the scene, even though it can't be seen. So I'm going to give it a couple of seconds to finish up what it's doing, and then I'm going to insert a basic light and just see how that affects the overall scene. So this shouldn't take too long. I think on the test on this, it was taking something like 20-30 seconds. So I don't mind it taking that long to show you what has to be done. It would have been easier if I just used a basic grid and thrown two walls up, but I wanted to show it to you in a real room to show you what the lighting will look like, because that's going to more closely represent the inside of your castle. Okay, so it's still saying it's rendering at the moment. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it run there for a second. I'm going to see if it will let me insert a light. It probably won't. Oh, there we go, it's done. 57 seconds it took. Okay, so if I go create light, and let's start with a spotlight. Okay, now you can see something is turned up there. So I'm going to pull the spotlight up. Okay, Now, I'm also going to pull it back. Okay, now it's not showing, you can just see there, it's not showing much. The reason is it's not a very bright spotlight. So if I go on over here to my intensity and I drag this to the right very slowly, well, maybe not too slowly because we don't want this video to go on forever, we can see that what it's doing is it's going to slowly build the scene. Now, even dragged all the way to the right, that hasn't done very much. And that's one of the little foibles of Maya. We'd consider that to be as far as it can go, and it's doing as much as it can. But it's only on 10. I can click in here and type in 100 and hit enter. And I can say, okay, that's not going to end up too bright. So I can go on in and type in 1000 and hit enter. Okay. Now you can see what we're getting there are some very strange kind of light finishes. Now the reason is it was kind of half in through the globe. So I'm going to hit the spin on this. I'm going to rotate it down. I'm actually going to step out as well, just a little. And then I'm going to hit W and I'm going to move the light up so it's shining on more of the scene. Now, if you have a look at that, you'll see that it looks extremely odd. And the reason is that that's an actual spotlight. So it's very clear where it is and it isn't shining light. Now at the moment the sphere is kind of in the way of it. So I'm going to move the sphere up out of the way. And now you can see exactly what the spotlight is doing to the room. It's actually kind of cool. Now, okay, so you can see here, if I can adjust the cone angle of this and the spread of light. Now it is kind of updating kind of slowly. The penumbra angle I'll go through with you. There's not much to that. The drop off is basically at what stage the light just begins to have no effect, and you can play around with that as well. So that's our spotlight basically, right? Now if I was to click on that and hit Control D and make a second one, I can then move that light over here. Whoa. And I can spin it around and point it down. Let me just see. And I can have two lights coming from two different angles, if that's what I want. Now, generally speaking, for what we're going to be doing, we're not going to be using spotlights. But I just wanted to show you what it looked like. It is an actual representation of an actual spot. You can see now it's beginning to render through there. And it does actually look like there's a light shining into the room, a very strong spotlight shining into the room. So we don't really want to do that. But what I'd say is create a spotlight and play around with it. I'm going to get rid of both of those lights now. Okay, so we're back to a black room again. So I go on up and I go create lights. And this time I want to go with a directional light. Now, people often mistake, let me just see if I can move that light up. People often mistake a directional light for a spotlight. Now, generally speaking, it's not a spotlight. When you see that directional light, if you have a look at it there, it's a number of arrows all pointing in one direction. A directional light doesn't just come from where that light is, it comes from that entire direction. So all the way over to me and all the way into infinity, the light is traveling from that direction. So even though the light literally is just at one point in the wall, it would also be traveling from on that plane. It would be everywhere in line with that light. That's the way the light is coming from, if you know what I mean. So imagine it's kind of like the sun to a certain degree. If the sun, even though it's a point in the sky, no matter where you go on the planet, it's shining in a direction. And that's kind of a loose analogy for what it's like. Now, again, you can increase the brightness of this, no end. What you'll find is that because it's a strong directional light, it's not very good for creating soft ambient light because it's coming from one direction and one direction only. And you'll find that, like, as it's hitting off the monitor there, you can see that it's creating a shape for the monitor on the wall. Okay, so that may or may not be of use to you. Sometimes that will be handy if you want to create the effect of sunlight coming in through a window, and you want to make it look like the entire wall is being lit from the outside and it's coming in through the window. And that's what you would kind of use for that, a directional light. So generally speaking, I could spin that around and you'll see the effect on it now. So if I then bring that up, I don't want to bring it up out, and you'll see, okay, so if there was no roof on the room and the sun was coming in, a very strong sunlight, that's kind of the effect you'd be getting, because it's extremely bright where you can see it, and it's casting shadows once there's, so let me just see, if I was to move that slowly across the room, let me just see, you'll see that it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. And the reason is, it wouldn't matter where that is, the light is coming from that direction. It's a directional light. What will make a difference will be if I spin the light like so. Now you see, now it suddenly looks like it's sunlight moving around the room as it's changing. So that would be something like that. So you could do something like that, let's say in an animation. You could slowly animate that, let's say over so many minutes, to make it look like the sun is moving really quickly across the sky or something like that. But basically that's our directional light, okay? Okay, now we get rid of that one. Now, let me see what else we can go with here. We have an area light. And again, we'll increase the area of that. Now, the area light is kind of like an ambient light, insofar as it just turns up in an area. It's lighting an area, but it's not coming from a direction. So if I was to go in here and change this to 50, let's say. Okay, so what we have there is light that's spreading out in all directions. It's not like a spotlight or a direction light that's coming from somewhere. So sometimes that's very good. If you wanted to put that inside a lamp or something like that, you could actually position it inside a lamp. And it would basically shine from inside the lamp. It would be very good for recreating a sort of a lamp effect. So if you had like a base and a shade and that sort of thing, you could just put that inside the shade and it would create light and shine through things and stuff like that. And it creates a very nice effect, generally speaking. So this could actually be of use to you in your castles, because what you want is, depending on the effect you're trying to achieve, you might want to light the castle. You might want to light the inside of the castle naturally. But you don't want to be able to see the lights in some way. Sometimes you will want to see the lights, and we're going to get around to that one now in a second. So that creates a light. Now I'll move that around and just let you see how it works. Okay, so I can move that up. Unfortunately, it does go terribly pixely. You'll find as I move it towards things. So if I was to move that, let's say towards a wall, like so. Oh, too far. Okay. It would become very, very intense at the wall. So the best thing to do with that is to just try and distance it away from any solid surfaces, so that the light isn't too intense. And you can always control it over here as well. There's a whole lot of effects and settings for these things. I'm not going to go through them. The best thing to do with these lights is just to play around with the settings and see what happens. Okay, so the next one I was going to show you is very interesting, because this one is kind of cool. Okay, so what we do with this one is we're going to turn on our dome light. So we go up to Arnold and we hit Sky Dome. Okay, so at the moment, this moment now, that's basically, that room has been lit from all directions. There's basically one large dome lighting it. You can see it here in the background. But I'm going to make a sphere again. So we go into poly modeling and we hit sphere. Okay, and there it is. Now I'm going to move this out of the way, because that's actually massively distracting. Okay, now, so what I want to do with this is I want to turn this sphere into an actual light, right? This can be very handy for making actual objects kind of glow and produce light. It's very good in that respect. So if I go on, if I select the object and I go on up to Arnold and I go over to lights and I choose mesh light, now it automatically disappears, and that's fine. Okay, so what I'm going to now do is I'm going to look for my Sky Dome in here, and I'm going to delete the Sky Dome, because I want to get rid of that and only light the room with the mesh light. Okay, now, so there we go. So clicked on the mesh light. Okay, so what I can do now is I can change the exposure of that, and you can see it looks an awful lot like the ambient light, insofar as or the area light, insofar as it's just it's light in the area, but it can't be seen. But it is possible to turn to use an awful lot of different effects in this, insofar as you can, if you want, make the actual light visible or hide it. It's entirely up to you, right? Now you can watch. If I click on this, okay, now we have a solid white ball in the room. Okay, but what you could very easily do is, if you wanted to put that inside something, let's say, so sometimes we use this for fluorescent tubes. So what we do is we'll make a cylinder, a long thin cylinder, and you'll actually see it. Actually, see these units here. They're the actual lights in room 3. And what I got the students to do was they made long thin cylinders, and they turned them into mesh lights and shoved them up inside the things themselves. Now, because the Maya is running a little bit slow for me, it would be a nightmare to do that now. But it's very easy to do. It's only a matter of making the cylinder, making it the right size, shoving it up inside the casing of the light fitting, and then turning it into a mesh light and adjusting the light, and it gives you a very, very realistic effect. Now, as you can see with that light there, you can see that looks like, down here in the photorealistic view, it actually looks like there's a big white ball in the room. It has some substance to it, but that's only because we've made it visible. We can very easily, if we want, go back and make that invisible again. So let me just hang on for 1 second. There it is. Okay, so we go, blank. Okay, so it's invisible again now. But the mesh light is extremely useful. It would be my light of choice generally because it's so versatile. It can be visible and invisible, and it has some very nice settings to it. Now, again, if you go on down, in here, you can see there's a whole load of different settings for as regards its visibility and how many surfaces it will reflect off, and the kind of shadows it casts, and all of that sort of thing. Play around with them if you want. What I would recommend is don't play with these lights in your own scene. Make a brand new scene and throw in a couple of shapes and start making lights and get an idea for it, because the last thing you want to do is mess up your scene in some way in case Maya crashes while you're playing around with it. Now you can see there that's beginning to render now quite nicely, and it actually looks really, really good. So that's basically some of the lights that you can play with. They're very straightforward. You move them into position. Sometimes if you create them and they don't do anything, it's because they're too dim. So remember that with some of the sliders, if you bring them all the way to the right, you can always click in here and increase them again. So with this one here, let's say with the exposure of that particular one, the maximum it has at the moment is 5, but I can change the maximum to 10. Whoa, okay, that's generally why you don't do that. But you could also change the maximum, or you can change it to 3. Now, again, that one will go up. Now it's going up to 20, so it kind of reacts to whatever setting you put on it. So if I put 50 on it, it's going to wash out the scene. Whoa, quite the opposite. The whole thing is turned blue. We're probably looking at some crazy effect there, but the reality is you can play around with these as much as you want and see what happens. So there's no problem there at all. It's whatever you really want to do with them right now. So let me just see. What we'll do is we'll leave this light in the scene. We'll leave it at 5. Okay, so I'm going to leave that one. Now, this object here, let me just see. I'm going to bring it down. I'm going to rescale this and just give you an idea of what I'm going to do. Okay. And then I might just close in and put it center stage. Okay. Now, okay, so at this stage we know how to map textures onto these, because we were doing that, I think, on our first day, just to give us an idea of how it worked, you know. So what I'm going to do now at this stage is I'm going to take this and I'm going to assign that other shader to it, the AI standard surface, and show you what can be done. So let me just move the light out of the way, because it's kind of irritating. Okay. So now we have the object selected. Okay, so if I right click on this actual object and go down here, this is a different way of assigning shaders. If I go on down to assign, oh, it's after freezing. Okay, hello. Oh, there we go. Assign new material. It will open up this window here. Now, can I just say, guys, this is a bottomless pit of despair. There are so many shaders with so many effects in here. Hardly any of them are included in the course. The only one I'm going to show you is a very, very good one for doing glass. It's called AI Standard Surface. And the reason I'm going to show it to you is in case you want to put glass into your chandeliers or glass into your windows and that sort of thing, right? So at the moment, this is now what's called AI Standard Surface, okay? So again, there is a tremendous amount of settings for this. But let me just go through some of them. So that's weight, that's transmission, that's subsurface, that's coat. We have emission, thin film, geometry. Okay, now geometry, right? So under geometry, we have something called opacity. Okay, now if I drag the opacity on this down, now hang on a second, we're not quite there yet. We're also looking for one called node appears to be missing. Base, specular, transmission, subsurface, coat, thin film, geometry is right. Okay, there should be one in here called Arnold, and it does very much appear to be missing. And with this particular one, when you oh, it's in the polysphere. There it is. There. Oh yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. So try and get your head on this. Okay. When we create a surface, an AI standard surface, to make it transparent, we have to adjust 2 settings. Okay. One is in AI standard surface, which is the shader we've just made, and we would adjust that under and 1 second, geometry, and there it is. That's our opacity. But at the moment, it's not adjusting the transparency of it. It is here, but not in our interactive view, right? So when we click on this tab here, the P-sphere shape 2, and we go on down to Arnold, you'll see that there's a box marked opaque. And if I click on that, there you go. Yeah, that's going to take a while to render. And yeah, I know if you think of all of these tabs in all of these nodes, it's an absolute nightmare trying to get your head around some of them. So I would say, to be perfectly honest, have a bit of a play and a bit of a laugh with this if you want, no problem, right? But don't go too much into it insofar as you might never come back out again. So this is going to take a while to render now, because once you make something transparent, it really does mess with the light rays, the ray tracing, because it has to then calculate what the light will look like passing through the object. So what we can do is, with that, we can make it transparent. So if you made a plane and you assigned the AI standard surface shader to the plane, and then make that plane the size of your window, and then you go on into the AI standard surface node under geometry and increase the opacity, and then you went into the P-sphere shape 2. No, it won't be a sphere shape 2, it'll be a plane shape 1 or something like that, and deselect opaque. What you can do is you can make the material just thin enough to look like glass, but have the illusion that you're looking through it, but you know it's not a solid object. So it will be more realistic than having nothing there, but obviously better than having something solid, which means you can now cut holes in your walls if you wish and put some glass in. Okay, so let me just get rid of that, because it's going to be rendering it for the rest of its life. And let me do something else. So this time what I'm going to do is, and I'm going to have to find something, I didn't prepare a shape for this. What I might do is I might close down that view, because that's going to cause loads of problems. I'm going to get rid of the light because I don't need it, and I'm going to get rid of that because I don't need it. So I'm going to bring in a basic shape. We're just going to bring in a cube like so. And what I want to do with this cube is I want to map something onto it. So straight away I remember that I can't use Lambert 1 because that's going to cause me problems. So I'll go on in and I'll hit Lambert. But you'll see that that's now calling it Lambert 86, because in this particular file I've opened, there's obviously another 85 Lamberts in there somewhere. So what I want to do is I want to map something onto that. So I'm not 100% sure if I have an image prepared for this. In fact, I know I don't. But if you remember from day one, you may not, we click on the little checkered symbol and it brings up this window here. And we go over and we click on File, and then we click on our yellow folder, and then it opens up this window over here. And at this stage, what I have here open is just a random selection of maps, which it may or may not give me a preview of. Oh, okay. Let's see what just some of them are. Okay, maybe not that one. I was looking for something with a very distinct, strong texture to it, but these all appear to be quite fine. Like something with, oh, okay, yeah, okay. Honeycomb, or maybe not, whatever the hell that is. Let me just go back down through some of them. Fabric, no, okay. Is that doors? Doors, no, okay, we don't want doors. Okay, so let's go with the honeycomb. We're going to say okay. Now, it's after mapping the honeycomb onto it, quite largely, right? So this is something that I wanted to show you as regards mapping finishes. So if you get brickwork, let's say, and you want to put brickwork onto your walls, it might come on extremely large, you know, massive bricks, like, you know, the size of your table or something, or it could come on very, very small, so it doesn't look like brickwork at all. So what you do is, this can get a little bit freaky, right click on the object and go on into, just hover on UV mode, and it will then become UV shell, and then click on UV shell. Okay, now that should bring up a window. So let me just see for a second, where has it gone? We don't want that one. Okay, so straight away that's after going missing. I'll have to find it now, so hang on a second. Right, so UV shell, so it's obviously somewhere, it's after opening up under behind another window, so hang on a second. It's not in there, and it's not in there. Nope. That's kind of irritating. I may end up having to save this video and go back in and do this again, because by default UV shell. Okay. What it should do is give us a pop-up window which allows us to map that object, but it's not doing that for some reason, which is really, really irritating. We should have a pop-up window here which allows us to, maybe it's, hang on 1 second. Ah, no, it hasn't opened up over there. Okay, we'll try it once more. No, it's not. Okay, so it hasn't. No, okay. Apologies for that. That should be opening up a new window for me. And unless it's after hiding it somewhere, sometimes Maya will open up new windows and bury them. But I'm not seeing it popping up. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll call an end to this video, and I'll do another one immediately after, and I'll basically just throw it up for you. So there you go. So hang on a second.